Thanks to Warumanzemon, they discovered the truth, that it was the side of Yggdrasil that started this war by destroying innocent children just because they walked past an imaginary line to play with the other children around. Dukemon had been devastated by the news hearing this truth. It was painful to know that the one they had sworn loyalty to was such a vile individual as to order the destruction of those that were starting to foster peace without the need for the border. Nicole said that they had the information and asked what the two would do with it. Speaking about Dukemon and Beelzebubmon, Dukemon said that he would not be pawned to someone so vile. They would order the deaths of children without mercy or any sign of remorse, and would try to get the knights to join them in facing the true enemy. Beelzebubmon said that anyone that is against that tyrant is a friend of theirs, helping Dukemon up as he did so. They asked if Warumanzemon would tell the story of what happened to the other Mao and Knight, so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again, and the bear agreed, saying that he'd do it for their friends, so that no other child loses their friends because of the war that never should have started. After that was decided, Nicole activated the function call, laying the tracks for C89. Speaking to the Demon Lord and the Royal Knight, Nicole then asked them to contact both of their sides and tell them what happened, and to meet at Yggdrasil's castle. They nodded and did just that, setting things up while C89 told them all aboard. Dukemon and Beelzebubmon did so, and Beelstarmon said she'd like to talk with Cat and Mastamon for a bit, so she'd be riding in the car, telling Dukemon to ride Machmon. The knight actually hadn't ridden before, but tried just out of curiosity's sake, since it was a new experience. The motorcycle Digimon smirking and letting out a grunting sound before shooting off, with the knight freaking out a little about the kickback from the bike. Beelzebubmon laughed and drove Behemoth, taking off after them, telling Dukemon how to properly ride. Dukemon tried as he was told and started to get the hang of it, finding it fun once he'd done so, with C89 running alongside them. The others were chatting with one another as Nicole was on ahead of them on his own, at least for a moment. Guzahamon soon joined him, asking if he was okay, and noticing that his eyes were back to normal. He nodded and sighed, saying he doesn't know what's going on. Ever since Aldemon, it's been strange. His girlfriend asked what he meant by strange, and he responded that he didn't even know he had bloodlust. But ever since Aldemon, it's been more frequent and doesn't know what to do. Kuzahamon suggested maybe they could figure it out together. She could help him just like he helped her when she was afraid. Nicole nodded, sighing softly, wrapping his arms around his lover. Kuzahamon wrapped her arms around his neck, and the two shared a kiss before C89 spoke up, saying that he hated to interrupt. But there are 3 oncoming Digimon headed their way. Nicole then digivolved into Holy Draudamon, flying up to see who it was, and saw that it looked like possibly Digimon from the mouse side. He then flown to Beelzebubmon, telling him they got company and they looked like friends of his. Beelzebubmon entered into blast mode, flying off into the air to see who it was, finding Barbamon, Belphamon in rage mode, and Daemon all coming over with the rest of the demon lords behind them at a distance away, as Leviamon was on the ground running up to the group. He was a bit slower than the others, so they kept close to guide the way for their ground-dwelling friend. Nicole then spoke, asking if they were going to behave on the way to the castle, to which Lusamon said they had his word once they had caught up with the group. They then all headed off, now with all 7 great demon lords of the Mao army, to the castle of Yggdrasil, with Dukemon leading the way while riding Machmon. The knights were prepared for something, seeing Dukemon riding along with the Mao. Nicole threw a white shirt from his inventory up, waving it around as if a flag to show they were there for peace, not fighting them, and so they were met outside the castle by Omegamon and Alphamon, along with Examon keeping his weapon trained on the group, just in case. They stopped at the entrance to the castle town, and Nicole flew to the knight as Holy Draudamon, asking who was the knight in charge, to which Alphamon spoke up, saying that it would be them. Our Digidestin leader then said that they'd found the truth of how everything started, and wanted both the Mao leaders and the royal knights to hear this while gesturing to Warumanzemon. The knights in the Mao waited to hear which side had truly started it, and the ragged-looking teddy bear, Digimon, began explaining what happened. He told them about how he and his friends simply wanted to play together and thought if they both crossed at the same time it wouldn't count, and they could play together without getting in trouble. About Knight Chessmon White, Knight Chessmon Black, all the fighting, everything. Alphamon said to stay put. He needed to speak with Yggdrasil, asking Omegamon to join him, and they nodded, going with them while the others stayed, but Nicole stayed in the form of Holy Draudamon just in case anything went wrong. The knights all had special screens in front of them they used to speak to one another on the server open so everyone could hear what's going on. Everyone kept an eye on the screens to see what was going on as Alphamon and Omegamon went to speak with Yggdrasil's 7D6 avatar to find out the truth. The leader of the night then questioned what exactly happened that day when all this began, to which the digital world's supposed god told them that Digimon crossed over the border of the side of the Mao and his own side.